Hi everyone, welcome back to Elle the Law Student. I'm currently on my lunch break. I'm working as a research assistant at the moment at UCL, but I'm doing it from home, and my laptop and everything's over here, so if you hear any like notifications and stuff going off throughout this video, that is why, because I don't want to turn them off just in case there's anything important. Last year I did a Personal Statement 101 series. They were some of the very first videos that I put up on Elle the Law Student, and I think I had one about reading around the subject, one about how to make your personal statement stand out, and one about how to structure your personal statement, or there or thereabouts. But basically I thought what I would do today is add another fourth video to that series in response to a message that I get so much on Instagram, and that is, how the hell do I cut down my personal statement? Now, I completely understand this concern because I remember I think I was basically at double the word limit or the character limit for my personal statement, and that was so frustrating because you've kind of gone through the process of writing it and then you want to cut it down, but you don't really want to get rid of anything that's super important, and it's a bit difficult. So over the past 2 years, I guess now, I've done a lot of access and outreach work with the university, and one of my jobs has been to mark personal statement drafts. Normally it's just like the first section of it through Unique Digital, but also I've got some mentees that I partnered with through a charity, and they tend to send me copies of their personal statement. So I've read a lot of personal statements over the past 2 years, and of course I wrote my own personal statement to get in to study law at Oxford. So today I thought I would give you my top tips and tricks as to how you can cut down your personal statement so that you are not over the character limit and you've got the best chance possible of submitting a really effective, really succinct, nice, clear personal statement. Okay, so number one, and that is switching from the passive voice to the active voice. This is how I cut down so many characters. Now, I mentioned this in one of my videos last year, I'm pretty sure, just because it saved my personal statement. So an example of this would be, if I'm talking in the passive voice, I might say, the car was driven by Elle down the road. But if I'm switching that to the active voice, I could say, Elle drove the car down the road. And you can already see how that can really help to limit your characters. I did this a whole lot. Hopefully just from the example you can see how you can really use just this very, very small trick to make sure that your personal statement is as succinct as humanly possible, because even the spaces between words count, and I think that this is one way how switching the voice can really, really help. But obviously that is not going to help on its own unless you are only ever so slightly over the word limit. The next one is something that will help you to cut down on the amount of characters, but it will also help with your clarity. I think at school we kind of go from, year 5, year 6, and from that point onwards we're always told to include as many different types of punctuation that we can to show off that we have that knowledge and that ability. So I remember, like, even when I was doing my A-level essays, I was including loads of semicolons, colons, hyphens, everything that I could possibly think of, because you want to kind of show the examiner or your teacher that you know what you're doing when it comes to punctuation. However, you can have a perfectly fine grammatically correct sentence that is 6 lines long, and although that might get you some ticks in your GCSEs or even your A-levels because your examiner might be impressed by that, I just don't think your personal statement is the time or place for it. The problem is, what you've got to think about is, as soon as you start to write really long sentences with multiple clauses, you make them really long, really complicated, first of all, you can be sacrificing clarity, especially when you think about the fact that the person reading your personal statement will have hundreds of these to read, if not thousands. Now, I know that if I was sat there having to read so many documents, I would want simple sentences, I would want straight to the point, and I would want to be able to just skim through and understand things. And I think you just can't afford to expect the person reading your personal statement to take the time to unpick all of these very, very long multiple clause sentences. One trick that I've found since beginning my degree has been, if I have a sentence that is more than 2 lines long on Word, I tend to go back to it and split it into 2, because normally there is just no need for a sentence to be that long. Even if you think it seems simplistic, It actually shows that you can convey what might be quite a complex idea very, very simply, and that takes a lot of skill. The next two kind of tie together because they're talking about extracurricular and supercurricular activities. So first of all, I would say you want to shave down on your extracurricular activities. I read so many personal statements that are about 50, maybe even more than that percent extracurricular. I'm talking about the orchestra that you play in, I'm talking about the dance classes that you go to, the volunteering that you do, your part-time job, all of these things are normally extracurricular rather than supercurricular. So what's the difference? Supercurricular things are things that are still academic but outside of your school curriculum. So for example, you went away and you read a book, or you did some relevant work experience, or you watched a documentary, you listened to a podcast, you just found something really interesting that you went away and formed an opinion on it. Those are all supercurricular, and that is fantastic. That is what you want the bulk of your personal statement to be. Extracurricular, as I said, stuff not related to academia. You might gain, and you will gain, fantastic skills from your weekend job, from your sports team, from your love of baking, all of these things you will gain brilliant skills from. However, at the end of the day, you're applying to an academic course. The advice that Oxford give is to make your personal statement 80% academic, so that includes your supercurriculars, and 20% extracurricular. I think realistically, from what I've heard, Oxford would, be perfectly happy if it was 100% supercurricular. But some universities do want to see extracurricular activities in there, and so you should definitely include them. However, if you are in a situation where you can see that a huge proportion of your personal statement is taken up by extracurricular activities, definitely just cut down on them, because they're not going to get you particularly far in comparison to your paragraph that's about the book that you've read, or the lecture that you attended, or your work experience. In that same vein, you can also very easily overdo it on the supercurriculars without actually getting too much out of them, unfortunately. And this is something that I definitely did, and it's something that I've seen so many personal statements do, and so I'm trying to warn you off right now. There's a huge tendency to just list everything that you've read, everything that you've listened to, everything that you've watched, just everything, every single reason why you want to study law, biology, psychology, anything. There's a huge tendency to do that, and I completely understand it, because that is your natural instinct. You just want to be like, I've read this book, this book, this book, this book, this book, and I want to study law. But quite frankly, I think that what you've got to appreciate is that it's so much better to include one or two of those examples and go into detail about them and engage with them than it is to include a list of 10 books, because realistically you've probably not formed a detailed opinion about all of those 10 books, and also it means that you're using up characters that are pretty worthless, they're not really adding anything to it. So instead of including all of those books, why don't you pick a couple of your favourite ones, or your favourite podcast, or your favourite documentary, or just something in particular that you've really enjoyed. Write that down on a piece of paper and write around it. What was my opinion on this? What did I agree with? What did I disagree with? After it, was there anything that I didn't understand or was really interested in that I went away to research further? And what's my overall opinion on this? And I can 99% guarantee that the person reading your personal statement will prefer to have one paragraph of that than a huge list of just dozens and dozens of things that you've read and watched and all of this sort of thing. Next thing is to make sure that every sentence is doing something. This is something that I've tried to start doing in my essays, and it really is as simple as you read the sentence, you say to yourself, what is this sentence proving? And for example, you saying something like, I am passionate about law, that's not really proving anything, that's not really doing anything, because you're not proving that you're passionate about law, it's just a statement. And it doesn't tell the person reading that statement anything about you, really. It doesn't tell them why you're passionate about the subject, why they should accept you over everybody else who will also probably say that they're passionate about that subject. So make sure that every single sentence is operating to actually do something. Why is that sentence in there? If you got rid of that sentence, would it impact the personal statement? If the answer is no, it wouldn't impact it, you can get rid of it. And finally, get somebody else to read your personal statement. Now, This can be absolutely anybody, but I would probably recommend somebody who's not sort of sat down with you and worked through it with you. I know that I basically did my first few drafts of my personal statement on my own before I got somebody to read through them, but I know some people might have a little bit more help than that. Either way, I think it's really great to get a parent, a teacher, a friend, just anybody to read through it, because quite often they might read through it and just have a fresh set of eyes, and they might be able to say, I don't really think this bit is relevant. So what you want that piece of writing to do is to tell the person reading it why they should accept you onto the course above everybody else. And so if you hand over your personal statement to a friend, a family member, anybody, and they say, actually, I'm not sure that this paragraph here is really telling me much about why I should accept you, then that might give you a good indication as to which bits you can cut out. If you don't feel like you do have anybody to look through it, I get so many requests all the time to look through people's personal statements, and I wish I could say yes to all of them, but unfortunately I just can't, because I already have so many people who I look through their personal statements as part of mentoring programs, or I look through their personal statements as part of my work at the university, and I just can't look through them all, basically. However, my friend Boston, who has just finished her first year of studying law at Mansfield College, she was marketing director of Oxford Women in Law Student Society. She is an amazing, amazing gal. She is currently offering a service where she will look through your personal statement. Normally, I'm the first person to say do not pay for any kind of advice on personal statements, LNATs, anything. However, Boston only charges £5 to look through your personal statement, and I know she does a good job, and I know that she really cares about everyone that she looks at. So I'll pop her Instagram down below because her link is in the bio of that. So if you feel like you've not really got anybody to turn to and you're feeling a little bit stuck, definitely go and kind of have a look at that and see if that's something that you might want to consider, because as I said, she's just a really, really lovely gal and her heart is definitely in the right place. Also, I hope that maybe my Personal Statement 101 series from last year is helpful, because that's kind of like how to get started, and that's how to like actually get the personal statement down on the page. And I suppose this is more about the editing process. So I hope that video was helpful, and I hope it answers some questions that I get in my Instagram DMs every single day. I really don't mind though, like if you ever have any questions, even if you're not sure whether I've covered it in a video before or not, please just drop me a DM, because if I have covered it in a video, I can always direct you to that video, but if I haven't, then I'm more than happy to just answer your questions anyway. As I said, the only thing I can't really do is review everybody's personal statements, because I just have already got so many to review and I wouldn't want to do a bad job, basically. I hope that you have a nice week, and I will see you soon. Bye!